What if a civil war that killed more people than World War I started because one guy thought he was Jesus' younger brother? That's the incredibly bizarre story of the Taiping Rebellion. Let's dive into some glorious Chinese history. Shall we? Mid-19th century China, the Qing Dynasty was struggling with floods, famines, a huge population boom, and general poverty, the kind of problems that make people want to riot. Plus, the government was wildly corrupt and incompetent. Now meet our main character, Xiuquan, a young man who really wanted to pass the imperial exams. He took the exams, failed, took them again, failed, again, and again. He had a complete mental breakdown. During his breakdown, he had a vision of a golden bearded man who was, in fact, God the Father, and a man with a sallow complexion who was none other than Jesus Christ, his elder brother. The visions told him to save the world from demons, which he quickly interpreted as the Manchu rulers of China. So he started a movement called the God-Worshipping Society, preaching a weird mix of Christianity and his own beliefs. His message resonated with the poor peasants, who were just looking for any kind of hope in their misery. His followers grew into a massive army of zealous believers ready to create their own new kingdom. They called their movement the Taiping Heavenly Kingdom, with Xiuquan as their heavenly king. The Qing Dynasty, naturally, was not thrilled. They sent their troops expecting an easy win against the rebels. They were wrong. The Taiping army, fueled by religious zeal, was surprisingly effective and well organized. The Qing forces were easily crushed. The Taiping army marched north, a wave of unstoppable fury. In 1853, they captured Nanjing, the city they renamed their heavenly capital, holding it for a decade. Xiuquan settled into his lavish palace, declaring himself the son of God, and living a life of leisure. He spent the next decade being a lazy, paranoid leader, while his top generals did all the fighting and dying. This led to internal fighting among his generals, and the Taiping army became a mess. It was glorious. Meanwhile, the Qing were getting desperate. They created regional armies, led by local strongmen, to fight back. They even hired Western mercenaries like Frederick Townsend Ward to fight the rebellion for them. The Western powers, like Britain and the US, initially just watched the rebellion from the sidelines, but when the Taiping army threatened Shanghai, the Westerners realized they needed to protect their own trade interests. The British and French sent troops fighting a war they had no real interest in, just to protect their profits. The tides began to turn against the Taiping. Their religious fervor was no match for modern Western weaponry. Their leader, Xiuquan, grew more erratic and insane, issuing bizarre religious decrees from his palace. In 1864, the Qing armies finally began the final siege of Nanjing, their heavenly capital. Rather than be captured, Xiuquan committed suicide, ending his strange and bloody reign. Without their divine leader, the rest of the Taiping army was quickly crushed by the Qing forces. The city of Nanjing was a bloodbath, and so the rebellion that started with a wild vision finally came to an end. The war had lasted 14 long years, but the worst part wasn't the length. It was the staggering death toll. Estimates range from 20 to 70 million people killed, making it one of the deadliest conflicts ever. More people died in this one Chinese civil war than in all of World War I, including the flu pandemic. The Qing Dynasty survived, but they were mortally wounded. The local armies would later turn against them. This rebellion was a major factor in the dynasty's eventual downfall, paving the way for the Republic of China. It's a bizarre and tragic story about how a man's delusions could lead to a monumental loss of life, all because he took a few hallucinatory visions a little too seriously, and a lot of people followed him. It just goes to show you what can happen when you fail your exams and have a really bad day